Did the Diamondbacks getting swept by the Rays get you down this weekend? Well, we're here to cheer you up. We got a big surprise. Join us right here, right now. Let's go! PHNX Diamondbacks podcast brought to you by our friends at Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHNX365 when you sign up. Choose your offer and find out why it is never ordinary at Bet365. And of course, again, welcome in here to the PHNX Coyote D-Backs Show.
Did you just say the Coyotes? Were you about to say the Coyotes
PHNX D-Backs Show. My name is Jesse Fried. Derek. See, you got me all flustered. My name is
you're really struggling
Derek,
here, buddy.
Derek Montilla. This is Jesse Friedman. You're not helping me at all here with this whole thing, right? Okay, I'll get back on track. I'm fine. No, I'm fine. What is happening? Why is Saul? What are you motioning at?
It's just not my guy.
What do you mean it's not my guy? What?
It's just
I just started.
Come on, let's go.
Oh, come on, Saul. This is absurd. Here you go. I just started. You didn't give me a chance here. Oh, man.
Appreciate it, Skip. Here to fill in. Go kill it. All right. Let's
All right.
really get to
The real
right now.
PHNX D-Backs podcast can actually begin right now. The D-Backs, Archie Bradley had a bit of a rough 3-game series over the weekend in Tampa. Just curious your initial thoughts.
This may not be the return of the beard that everyone was hoping for, but it is a return nonetheless. Okay. So, let's get right into it. Frustrating series.
Yeah.
You know, D-backs have been as hot as anyone in sports the last month. And you go into a series. Welcome back. You can
No,
sit down.
absolutely
Yeah,
not. I am not
Are we
missing
allowing
out.
Derek back
back.
on the
You
set
can-
now?
I am not missing out on
Come sit
this.
down. Give me a little bit as I get situated here.
Well, of course, welcome in to Archie Bradley to the PHNX Diamondbacks Show. Thank you for joining us, and not just for a limited
I
time
was going to say,
appearance.
don't talk to me like this is a one and done thing.
Right, no,
You know,
no,
like
I
you're
will
acting
not.
like I'm out of
I
here and you
will
guys are
not.
going
I
to give
will
me,
not.
some food and
Yeah,
send me on
no,
my
we'll
way.
feed you. We have lots of alcohol somewhere in this building. We'll take care of you. But of course, the one and only Archie Bradley here, part of the PHNX D-Backs Show now, and we couldn't be more pumped about it, man.
Well, let's get into it.
Let's
we
get
can,
into
we
it.
talk about me a lot.
Right.
We'll do that a lot.
Well,
We'll have a
yeah.
lot of fun stories.
I know. Yeah. Well,
Um,
everybody knows who you are, right? No one needs an introduction at all for Archie, right, Jesse? But do you want to fill him in anyway?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really feel like this is necessary, but for those who don't know, Archie Bradley was selected 7th overall by the Arizona Diamondbacks back in 2011, and he is, fantastic on the mound, but perhaps better known for his work at the plate. A certain,
That's right.
A
That's
certain
right.
hit in
World-renowned
2017 that people may or may not remember.
Can we get that bat in the Hall of Fame already?
I
Like-
mean, Josh Rawlins, who used to work for the D-backs, is now like the president of Cooperstown.
Yes, yeah,
so considering it's
Yeah,
the
you're in.
only reliever to ever do it, that bat has to be in Cooperstown.
Right?
I've got it at the house, Josh. I can get it to you overnight. I don't know the
Yes,
protocol to
with
get
the
the bat
right-
into Cooperstown, but I've got it ready to ship.
Yeah,
so.
man, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, of course, I mean, a lot of fans are wondering, how has life been for you over the last couple of years? Because I know a lot of people have missed you.
Life has been good. Hasn't necessarily been good in the baseball world as terms of playing baseball. I've had some injuries. I'm sure we'll get into it and have a full story over my injury in Anaheim,
Sure,
breaking my arm. We got
sure.
to break that down. But I just haven't been playing that well. My injuries have kind of piled up. I haven't been able to stay consistently healthy. I haven't been able to throw the ball consistently hard enough as these guys are throwing it now as compared to
Sure.
just a couple years ago. And my thought or my approach on what I'm doing now, I refer to people in the real world. It would be like showing up to your job here and you have half the people here to work, or you don't have your computer and you didn't watch the last series and you have to talk about the last series.
Right,
You
right,
know, it just got to a point where I'm doing all this training, I'm spending all this time for not really a return, or a return that I deem as caliber of playing at the major league level. No offense to any of my boys out there, anyone on the minor league grind right now, but I would rather be sitting here talking about the D-backs than being in Albuquerque, New Mexico, Reno, Nevada, pitching where I don't think I'm good enough to be called up. If I'm going to be called up, I'm going to be called up because of my name and my status, not because of my talent being acceptable at the major league level.
Right.
So it's not really a shift. I'm still trying to play. I'm going to play next year, but let's take advantage of my time. Let's travel, and let's dive into this town and city that has accepted me so openly and continue to make my home here. Even if it's not throwing a baseball, we can damn sure talk about it.
Well, I imagine you can't like walk around a grocery store without people recognizing you around here.
No, and that was real quickly just to dive into it. I came out here in January to train.
Right.
This is where home is. This is where I've known everything about who I've become as a man. From 18 to 30 years old has been here in Phoenix. So I came out here to train, and real quickly, in the most humble way, it was very eye-opening that I am still very popular out here. Exactly that. The grocery store, the Waste Management Open, autographs, pictures, requests, where I was like, man, I need to take advantage of this. Like, you know, everyone has this storybook about how they're going to play and go off into the sunset, but that's just not the same for everyone. You know, you can only throw hard so many times. You can only hit so many triples. You can only do so much sometimes physically, and you have to rely on other skills and other assets to continue not only life, but things I'm passionate about. I don't just baseball has opened this door to where I'm sitting here now, and I want to run with it. I want to take what baseball has given me, and if those doors are done and I am done playing, let's move on to the next chapter, but use this segue that baseball has allowed me to travel on and continue whatever it is I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Well, we're thrilled to have you here. And I know I told Jesse this, but when I used to cover the Diamondbacks in the clubhouse, you were my favorite person to talk to because you always had so much to say. And honestly, like when it comes to, you know, how some players can be, and I understand, like sometimes as a player, you get the same old questions day in and day out. But I felt
we're
like
not very creative. Archie, I'm sorry.
Well, it's funny. We talked about it a lot off screen. You have a lot different perspective being on the outside looking in, right? And like, in the best way, you have to ask those monotonous, repetitive questions. You have to ask things that are somewhat like, dude, are you really asking me this? Because we do need to know. And what was the answer yesterday may not be that same answer today. And I think it all comes down to understanding that this whole thing, this whole baseball, it is a business, and it is a huge machine that is driven by reaction and interaction and sound bits and clips and bites. And you can either choose to narrate your own story by talking and being active and being a voice that people can come to, and you can control a narrative or a story in a clubhouse, or you can sit back and watch and let these rumors and things fly around. And so, yes, I love talking and love being a figurehead. I think that's obvious, but I also took it as I can step in and kind of shield or block or help this young guy, you know, answer this question about this huge moment that he screwed up, and use it positively, or use it where it's a non-story and it's, hey, you know, this happened, we can move on, D-backs are fine.
Well, speaking of looking from the outside looking in, what are your thoughts on this Arizona Diamondbacks team, and especially what they've accomplished?
I wish I was on it. This is a team that I feel like Archie Bradley fits right in. Scrappy, maybe not. I mean, Marte, Corbin, your guys, but I feel like every other day, or especially recently, a new guy is the hero. A new guy is stepping up and providing something, and you're starting to see, again, we're missing a few key pieces, but you know, this team hit its stride and win games that earlier in the season we had no chance of winning or even really competing in. So
you have some connections with some guys on this team. Obviously, some of them are former teammates of yours. Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly. I know you mentioned before we jumped on air that Randall Grichuk apparently.
Yeah, that homer doesn't count.
Okay, all right.
Every pitcher, I don't care what you say, how many you've given up. You guys can fact check. I think I've given up under 30 homers in my career.
Okay,
which is pretty good. I don't get a lot of homers hit off me, but that rookie year didn't count. I didn't have a beard. I didn't know what I was doing. I was
Especially
throwing,
the beard,
pre-beard.
I was
we don't
throwing
talk
about the
that.
same miles per hour I am throwing right now. So, but yeah, I think it was right center in St. Louis. It makes me so mad. But
Still
yeah,
remembers
Gritchick's
where it
there.
went out at. Yeah.
You know, I think we talked about it that maybe jumping. This is my first time doing this, so if I jump ahead of schedule, guys, just calm me down.
You're all good.
But Gritchick's the first guy you brought up, but a couple guys that are my class or that I've played with continuously against hitting 10 years of service.
Yeah.
Which I know everyone here has seen the D-backs post about these guys, but guys, 10 years of service
it's amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about not only the luck, and I say luck, but there's so much luck that goes into playing 10 years. Not only talent, but a couple guys, Gritchick, Gino Suarez, and Jock Peterson just recently, all 10 years of service. So guys, tip of my cap to you guys as someone who's still grinding, trying to get that 10-year mark. You've made it. If there's ever a time in baseball you can say you've made it, when you hit 10 years of service, you have made it.
It's so hard because baseball is such a fickle sport where like no matter how good you are at it, it is hard to maintain that level of excellence for any extended period of time, let alone long enough like 10 years like that.
The wave of youth that is coming to the game that for better or for worse is, taking older guys' jobs in the new formats with rosters and the way teams can carry guys. It's not as easy to stick around in the game like it used to be. I'm sure every old guy says that, right? When you're not playing, right? Like, the game has changed so much. It's so young. But I mean, really it has. You aren't seeing these days of old where guys have to accumulate 2,000 minor league at bats or throw 1,000 minor league innings.
Sure.
Like, if you're ready and the whole timing and holding guys' clock backs, I don't think it's as big of an issue as it was, say, 5-10 years ago.
Right.
I think one of the biggest narratives, just kind of getting into what's happening with the Diamondbacks right now, Ketel Marte was just placed on the injured list just a few moments ago. I know, Archie, you played with Ketel. You saw Ketel have an extraordinary 2019 season. I mean, that was a year where he finished top 5 MVP voting. He's become a really important part of this Diamondbacks team. Just what's your view on kind of the player that he's emerged into?
I mean, in some ways, for me, when I look at the Diamondbacks last year, he is the guy. I mean, I know Corbin came on last year, Rookie of the Year, Merrill, Gallen starting the All-Star game. But Marte signed an extension when I played with him. He just signed another extension last year, 2 years ago. That's going to extend him, I think, through the 2029 season. I mean, for me, he is your Diamondback.
Yeah.
Again, maybe not as popularity-wise. I know but when I look at the D-backs, I look at Marte, and I look at this season. I look at the pace that he's played at and the weight he's carried for this team. Which again, one thing I'll talk about before I get super deep, I'm trying to approach this in a way where I am always for the player. I'm not here to critique guys or I hope that I'm probably going to say some things that are going to piss some guys off. That's just part of speaking when you do podcasts and you talk media. But I'm trying to give my take as an inside of being inside the clubhouse and not really judge or critique players based on performance, because it's freaking hard to play baseball. And I know this guy should have hit more homers because he traditionally has, but I hope that my time here, I'm able to give an insight from a player's view and not so much of a media view of critiquing or asking why, but giving an answer to why or these things happen or don't happen.
It does feel messed up to me from time to time that someone like me who barely played baseball in high school, and we don't speak of my high school baseball career.
I think we should. That's something that I think we all always like. Well, let's see the tape. What you're asking me this question. Let me see some high school tape.
The tape is pretty much non-existent, Archie, because my coach never put me in the game. We'll just end that conversation right there. But yeah, I mean, as journalists and people in the media, yes, it is our job on one hand to provide analysis and give people what they're looking for from a content perspective, but yeah, someone in your shoes obviously sees things a little bit differently. What it's like to get to this level and to succeed at this level, and at times to struggle at this level, because baseball is just such a difficult game.
It is, and that's where, even more so from when I was in to now, the outlets you have at your fingertips to showcase who you are, your frustration, inside looks that were never even acceptable before. We're at a time where, I don't know. I think the media in sports is the greatest it's ever been right now.
Wow.
these podcasts I talk about a lot, I'm not afraid to admit it. Like a guy I really look up to in this stuff is Pat McAfee. I think Pat McAfee has changed sports journalism, sports representation, the things you're allowed to say on sports, on ESPN in general. But to that side, like everything, it's a double-edged sword, right? Yeah. When you're in there grinding and you're trying to play, like, dude, I don't really care about my 0 for 4 yesterday. And people don't get that. What do you mean you don't care? And it's like, I don't care.
Well,
you know?
Like this show, sometimes you do a cold open and you screw it up really bad. And you just got to shake it off. And then you got to come back and do the show tomorrow, right? You go 0 for 4, you got a game to play tomorrow. But I know normally on this show, we do a thing around here. And of course, every year, of course, is still our year. Every month is still Hispanic Heritage Month. Every week is Shark Week. Every day is Earth Day. And on Mondays, we go to the mailbag. So we're going to do a special thing where we want you guys to send your questions for Archie for Mailbag Monday in there. And before we move on, Damon, would you mind hitting that Mailbag Monday music, please?
My mailbox, always something interesting in my mailbox. I try to get to everything in my mailbox, and then once in a while there's a letter that makes me go wow, wow. My mailbox, always something interesting.
All right, so make sure to send your questions again for Archie here in the chat. We'll make sure to reach those. First, Elizabeth, of course, one of our favorites, says, "How does Archie feel about cursed fans attending games?" And just to give you a background, Elizabeth is one of those cursed fans.
She believes that every game she goes to, they lose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
I think there's some facts.
I was going to say, as long as there's some data behind this.
Yeah.
So, Elizabeth, this is where we talk about this. We're all in this together, right?
Yeah.
If there is data backing the losses in your attendance, then we have to make an adjustment.
See, you called me a monster for that, and he agreed. So I don't know what to tell you.
It's no different. I mean, I wear cleats, gloves, whatever. I give up runs in a glove. Like, all right, I'm probably not going to wear it the next game. I'm going to give it one more chance in the rotation that week, and not throwing it away. But I give up runs wearing a certain glove again. Like, okay, this glove's out at least for the rest of this month. Yeah. Like, so
do you have a talk with it? Do you tell it you can't?
So
you can't pull this shit again.
Skit. If I had a glove, I would show you, but I can. There's only one way to know if a glove is ready for a season, and that's to yell profanities into it.
Okay.
That's the only way to tell if that glove is receptive and ready to go for the year, is to drop a couple F-bombs in it.
That sounds right.
What are you what kind of response are you hoping to get from the glove in that moment?
The acoustics. You're looking for the softness on your face. You know, is the glove broken enough where you're not going to scratch your ears or face when you shove it in your mouth?
Okay. All right.
And that also comes from my mom. I don't want my mom or anyone else seeing you say bad words.
Right.
You got a standard to set out there. Yeah. But Elizabeth, back to the original question. If it's documented and we're losing games and you're there, I mean, there's multiple streaming services to watch games these days. So you're just going to have to sit a few out. That's bottom line. That's the answer there.
Well, our scout mom, Chris, in the chat, she had a question for you. It disappeared. Chris says, down there. There you go. How many bad outings for a pitcher before you would change his role if you were managing? And does that? I imagine that varies based on like if they're a rookie with there's options.
That's what we were just talking about a little bit before this. That's where I think you guys will get to enjoy a lot of my answers from this type of thing. Is the bullpen role is so volatile compared to other guys in the lineup or your everyday players. You know, they're given a lot longer leash, a lot more leeway to screw up or work through struggles that they're having, where in the bullpen, man, it is all timing. To answer your question honestly, even though this has been me before, especially where we're at now, August, September, you've got 3 or 4 games. You've got a series, maybe 2 series. And if you're in a 7th, 8th inning, 9th inning role and you're not producing, or a take that most people aren't afraid to admit, but like you blow a game in the 9th inning, right? You blow a game in the 7th and 8th inning. People want to say like, oh, well, it's not your fault. No, it is my fault. Yeah. When you handed me that ball, we had the lead. My job is to take that game into the 8th or the 9th with that lead, and I blew it. It is my fault.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a rough take, but even myself, it's a standards I hold myself to. If 3 or 4 games in a row we lose the game because of your inning, it's time to make a change.
There are a lot of fans that blame Torrey in a lot of those instances, right? And I've actually said that same thing. Like, I'm like, I understand blaming everything. You guys blame us for the fact we said on the Twitter account they were going to win, and you blame Elizabeth for being there in person and all that stuff, right? But when does it come down to just blaming the guy? And I'm sure even the pitcher himself, like you're saying, like accepts that responsibility that I screwed it up. It's not that like, oh, Torrey put me in at the wrong time or shouldn't have used me or should have gone in a different direction.
Correct. And I think that's, to not get deep, but this new wave of analytics and numbers and the way Torrey is given information from the people who the D-backs hire to give him this information, along with Torrey's own feel and sense for the way he's managed for the past 20 years in his managerial career. But it's always easy to point the finger. I think in baseball, what's the toughest thing to do, because we're a little sensitive and it's maybe not as popular, but to blame the player more. I mean, there's certain times I just think we talk about viewing this as a business and teams wanting more, players wanting more. Like, it's okay to say Archie blew the game, and he did. Like, yeah, there was runners on first and second in the fifth, and we had 0 outs, but like, we had the lead in the eighth, and Archie blew the game. It's his fault. Sometimes I don't think there's enough of that. And as much as I was just defending myself, like, that's in these times when you're talking about holding a wild card lead and chasing down the Dodgers in a playoff race. Yeah. It's the brutal part of sports, but we don't have time for feelings, and I don't have time for your all-star status, and I don't have time for your 3-year contract that we're paying you. Like, if you're not producing now and we need it, whoever is going to produce needs to be pitching that inning.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like Torrey did a good job early on, right? He gave guys a lot of opportunities, and in some cases, that's what that first half of the season is about.
Correct.
Trying to build some of those guys up that you believe in and give them that confidence. But yeah, I agree. Like, when you talk about getting down the stretch, right? Like, there kind of has to be tough options to be made. And the Diamondbacks, even though they keep going through all these injuries, they have depth. They have guys that are performing. So I think that's the other thing too here is obviously they're thin at some positions, but when it comes to pitching and other things, if you're not performing, it feels like there's another guy that is. And
in the worst way, it's so much different than, like, for an example, ninth inning, whatever. Let's just say Corbin's been struggling. Corbin comes up with the game on the line. There's more of a sense of, like, I think he's going to get it done. You put in a reliever that struggled a couple games in a big situation. I don't care who you are, even your best friend. It's like, Arch has been struggling a lot. I don't feel too confident him jogging in the bullpen right now. Like, and your team feeds into that. So sometimes, man, it stinks. And I think that's the toughest job of sports and Torrey is, like, yeah, I mean, you've had your closer, your 8th inning guy, but man, you're just not getting it done right now. We need to make a change, and we're trying to win.
Fernando in the chat asks, "What are your thoughts on Yolbert Diaz? Have you had a chance to see Yolbert pitch yet?"
Very minimal. Yeah. I will say, I've watched the D-backs and watched baseball, but with this opportunity coming up, I've been paying a lot more attention. I think with everything, man, I need a full season. Like, to judge a guy, I've learned, even myself, I go back to my first starts, I was going to be the best starter there ever was. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. The league is tough. And especially now, again, I talk about phases of the season, but teams are playing different now than they were 2 months ago. Right. Not even from but when you're playing to make a playoff spot, you approach the game differently. You do things differently than the early part of the season where you're just kind of hacking and swinging and trying to figure out who you are.
Well, it's like what you said when we were talking prior to the show, that, like, even those at bats, right? Sometimes when you're talking about an at bat early in the game versus an at bat late in the game,
completely different.
When you're talking about that ghost runner, and I know we're going to get into that a little bit, but, like, yeah, the game definitely changes depending on where you're at, and the season changes depending on where you're at, for sure. Let's see. Got some more questions. Damon, would you mind pulling those up? Marcus wants to know, did you black out during that triple?
I did. Everything was good until I hit second. If you watch the replay, that's when I start wobbling and my run gets real out of control. And because I still talk about it. No one talks about the homers I gave up at all. Yeah. Like, it became a 1-run game again real quick. And, like, even before I could realize, I was like, oh, crap. Well, what's crazy is that whole season, and you can fact check, I never gave up more than 2 extra base hits in any outing that whole year. Like, I only gave up 1 extra base hit per outing. Like, I never gave up 2 doubles in a game. Yeah. And I gave up back-to-back homers and then a double to Pat Valleca. And so it went 3 extra base hits in a row, and I hadn't given up more than 1 in any outing that whole season.
Do you have like alarm bells going off in your head at that moment when you're like that, like that's happening to you?
Yeah, well, too, if you look at it, like the Story Arenado, or the Homer Arenado hit, hung curveball, whatever. But then the homer that Story hit was like 97 down on the way, and he shot me oppo, and I was like,
How?
What?
How?
There's
The
no
story
way.
was really something,
And
especially when
then
he first came
Valleca
up,
hit the
yeah.
double, blah, blah, blah. I'm getting out. But yes, to your question, I completely blacked out after the triple.
All right. Well, we'll get back to some more questions here shortly. Of course, we thank all of you for being here in the PHNX Sports YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe to that channel. Hit that like button for this man next to me. And of course, for my self-esteem as well. Also, make sure you're subscribed. You sign up for notifications. That way you don't miss whenever our shows go live. If you're listening on the audio podcasting side, make sure you subscribe on your favorite audio podcasting app. Leave us a review. Those 5-star reviews mean the absolute world to us. Of course, we were out at Gila River Resorts and Casinos this morning, and I didn't want to leave, but I had a very important thing to do here today, as you guys see. So I did have to leave, but me and Damon, we almost stayed and just, got down on a little roulette and whatever
I
else.
wanted to play roulette
He's
so bad.
Like,
man.
it was like literally we had to like drag him out of there like you'd take a child out of Toys R Us, which I don't think exists anymore. But
I was gonna
anyway,
say, that's
That's
over,
right.
over the
Toys
head.
R
I
Us.
don't think
definitely
that's
him.
around.
All right, but of course, Gila River Resorts and Casinos, no one does it better. They offer an immersive and authentic experience. They have their state-of-the-art gaming floor with over 800 slot machines, 15 blackjack tables, and all of those wonderful live table games, plus Arizona's largest casino sportsbook. So we will be hosting events there all year long, including the Cards and the Suns watch parties and so much more. So stay tuned for all of that and make sure you come hang out with us. Also, head to Gila River Resorts and Casinos yourself and let them show you what next level is all about. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playathila.com for more details. I did also want to give a shout out to our friends at Sanderson Ford for letting us borrow some wonderful vehicles over the course of this weekend. I still don't want to give mine back.
You still have it?
I still have it. They told me to bring it back this morning, but I was like, is that negotiable? Because, I don't want to give it back. I love my Ford
Just
Bronco
make them
Sport.
come take it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Just
Yeah, I
make
mean,
'em-
they'll do that, right? They'll eventually come repossess it, I'm sure. But of course, I think Totre's not even giving his back. He's just going straight into the office to sign that lease. But check out Sanderson Ford. We are proud to have them as our official vehicle sponsor. And that 65-acre facility out there is magic. They have everything you're looking for, wide variety of vehicles. And of course, the Starliner Diner. Stay for lunch. I'm just telling you that right now. But check out all of the wonderful offers they have right now. They are pushing for the playoffs, and you get the payoffs like deals on that 24 Ford Bronco Sport Big Ben, which I got to borrow, just ranked highest in quality in its segment by JD Power. I felt powerful driving it. That's what I will say. Plus, you get 0% financing for 36 months with no payments for 90 days on the Ford F-150, Escape, Edge, Explorer, and Expedition. The Sanderson Ford Summer Sales event is here, and they are teaming up with the Boys of Summer for a final Playoff Payoff Sale. Purchase or lease any new Ford and get 4 tickets for your family to see the Diamondbacks push for the playoffs. Get 0% for 36 months, OAC from Ford Credit. See dealer for details. And Kobe, yeah, you're right. I need the baby blue one as well. The baby blue Bronco is amazing. All right, well, we do have to talk, unfortunately, a little bit about this series that the Diamondbacks played against the Tampa Bay Rays over the weekend because it was not pretty. And I think the most discouraging part about it was the performance by the starters, right? Like, you're very amped to see Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly go 1-2 in any series for those guys to be back doing their thing. And, they struggled in this one against the Rays.
Yeah, Merrill Kelly was not, he wasn't at his best in that game yesterday. 5 innings, 8 hits, 6 runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. His velocity was also down a smidge. I think it averaged 90.2 miles an hour yesterday, down a couple ticks from where it was last season. But also, this is Merrill's second start coming off a pretty lengthy IL stint. So, I don't know, Archie, no huge concerns there for you
Not
at this
for
point,
me.
I imagine.
I mean, again, we talk about the last month and a half of D-backs baseball, and I said it earlier, they've been the best team in sports, in my opinion.
Yeah, they've been really, really good.
I think just naturally you're going to have a bad series like that.
Yeah.
I talked about it earlier. I don't know why Tampa is such a hard place to play baseball.
It's because of the catwalks. It's
the
because the building is stupid.
Look, I'm not here to make excuses. I told you I'm here to give an inside point of view. So they played the Rockies. I'm assuming they left after the Rockies game.
Yeah, I believe they went to Tampa. Yeah, it would have been on
flew
Wednesday.
in, full off day in Tampa, but still, I don't think people understand the time that the schedule that we're on, and then how going East Coast does throw such a huge difference in our schedule and our travel. where I talked about it. Say you sleep until noon, that's like sleeping until 9 here.
Right.
So there's a lot of factors. And then I don't know why, but anyone that's ever been to Tropicana, and again, I say this with no disrespect, it's a shithole. I mean, it is. That's the only way to explain it. I mean, the bullpen situation, you're sitting down the third baseline and you're looking towards center field. And the way you sit, like your knees are above your waist. So you're sitting in an awkward position, looking right.
Yeah.
The dugout only holds like 15 people comfortably. So most guys are inside. It's just, I can't explain it. There's almost this like haze over Tropicana that like you buy into the crappiness of Tropicana.
Yeah.
Well, the roof, the catwalk, the lighting's different, the turf, and it bounces weird. And we go over all these extra things and it's like, dude, just play the Rays.
Yeah.
They've lost 10 out of their last 13. Like
Right.
just play the team that's there, not the stadium and the environment.
Well, and the smell too, right?
And again, I can't explain it. It's just the aura, you almost do feel like you're underwater in some ways.
Right. Well, and it's weird location, right? Like it is kind of like out there in the middle of the water, right?
Just again, the whole thing, the hotel you stay at, or at least where we stayed at, it was an older hotel.
Yeah.
Just the whole vibe of like that area. And then Tampa. I mean, it's one of those teams I talked about it, good or bad. Go watch them take pregame infield. And they're the most fundamentally sound team I've ever seen throw the baseball around the field.
And that's just part of like the franchise's
like, you remind me of
DNA.
like the Fred McGiff, like back to back AAU national champs. Like that's the Tampa Bay Rays. And just weird things happen there.
Is that why they always feel that they can like kind of recycle that team so much?
Yes.
You know, because they just have that culture of.
I talk
like,
about a system, like you talk about like a system player or system team, like. That's why, it doesn't matter that they lose in a Rosarena or they lose a Wander Franco or whatever. Like, I know these are big star players, but their system is set up to plug and play. They are fundamentally sound. They run almost like a playbook type of plays and offensive scheme where as long as this guy meets the criteria of the analytics, then they can put him in there. And it doesn't matter what his last name says. He can play that role for the way Tampa is trying to win games.
Their playbook definitely worked against the Diamondbacks over the weekend, particularly on the bases. The Rays went 13 for 13 in stolen bases over the weekend.
7 on Sunday.
Yeah, it was a bit of a rough watch at times.
They had the go sign. They had the green light, man.
I think I want to say they said on the broadcast at one point that 10 was the highest stolen base total in any D-backs series in franchise history. So 13 would completely blow that out of the water. Not great.
Again, I'm hoping that's a Tampa team that runs a lot compared to some of these other teams. Like even with the new rules, the stolen bases are cool, but it's not like teams are crazy taking advantage. But you do see something like that. And again, this is being on the outside looking in where I can offer more insight. It's concerning because that's something that going into the next series, the Marlins are going to look at. It's ways where you talk about being able to beat a team that you're not better than by being able to do stuff like that. A single turns into a double per se. And now a guy's in scoring position and all you gave up was a single. You know what I mean? Yeah. I just hope it's something, obviously not having Gabby, that we look at and adjust. I mean, that's the thing that I think we don't talk about enough. That's something that I hope those guys will go into this Marlins series like, hey, all of you, we need to be quicker to home. We cannot allow guys to get to second base and be in scoring position for not really earning it.
So you view this as maybe more so on the pitchers than on Adrian Del Castillo or Jose Herrera behind the plate?
Both. I mean, I think it's both. I mean, you're throwing in new catchers, new timing. I think it's something where if we go into this Marlins series and it's something we see more of, like, all right, let's press a button and let's call a meeting and figure this out. Yeah. But I would chalk it up just all around. Again, that's where we look at like bad play. Like, yes, there was a lot of opportunities, but also that's something as simple as like, hey, we cut down half those stolen bases and we win 2 of those games. Those guys aren't in scoring position and these doubles don't turn into 2 guys scoring, blah, 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 right? But that's a simple thing. Cut down the stolen bases. You cut down guys in scoring position. Those ground balls are now double plays. There's just things that happen because you keep guys stationary.
just blame it on the trop, right?
Yeah,
That's
it's
right.
part
Blame it on the
of the
trop.
it's part of just playing there, man. It's something weird.
It's that damn Stingray tank out there in the outfield. Well,
I'm looking at according to Baseball Reference, you've thrown 3 2/3 innings in your career at Trop.
I think all in one outing, correct? Is that all, or was it 2 appearances?
It says 3 games, 3 2/3 innings, and you did not allow an earned run.
All right.
Yeah.
there we go.
I knew one
You
of the
overcame
times
it.
I was there, we played an extra inning game, and I was the last option out of the pen. I think it was 2019, that first half, when I became the closer in the second half.
Sure.
I think Godley and I were left down there, and Godley was like, "Hey, man, start loosening up." I was like, "Bro, you're going in before me right now." Like, that's how bad it is. You're going in before me. But yeah, I think more than anything, with the way we've been playing, I think it's just natural in sports. You're going to have a bad series.
Sure.
It's unfortunate against a team that was not playing very good baseball that you would expect us to pounce on, especially with Gallen and Merrill going back to back there. But again, I'm always going to give you the side of like the player, like, man, we got swept. It's part of it. Let's go into Miami, beat them, and then we're good.
Yeah.
You go into Miami, lose 2 out of 3, and you look at the road trip like, crap, we just squandered a road trip against below 500 teams. Like, that's a miss for us right there.
Right. Well, I know we don't really want to do this, but let's take a look at the count presented by Desert Financial Credit Union for this series. The Rays outscored the Diamondbacks 19-12. They out-hit the Diamondbacks 34-24. Runners in scoring position, 9 for 35 for a 757 batting average for the Rays to the Diamondbacks 241. They were 7 for 29. But the big story here, obviously, and I know one of the days that it was basically an opener, but the Tampa Bay Rays go out there and they post a 0.72 ERA. They allowed 1 earned run by starting pitching in the series, and that's the point that's what really, I mean, where the Diamondbacks really fell short, right? Like, is the Diamondbacks have been able to do it not only against starting pitching, but early, right? They've been able to go out there and put up runs in the first inning and kind of give their pitchers an opportunity to pitch with a lead, at least, out of the gate. And they did not do that in this series. Diamondbacks starting pitching ERA also pretty bad, 6.06. Relief pitching ERA, basically a push, 3.86 for the Rays, 4.07 for the Diamondbacks. But again, the Diamondbacks' inability to score against the starting pitchers for the Rays was the big story in this one, especially considering that, you look at their numbers, and of course, numbers wise, they didn't have anything that you thought you were going to be worried about. But baseball is baseball. That's the reason why I was very cautious about this entire stretch that they had. We've been worried about parts of the Diamondback schedule, the Guardians, the Phillies. Oh man, there's a lot coming up, and they smoked those teams. So I was like, of course they're going to struggle against the below 500 teams, And I mean, it happened in a great time where the Diamondbacks could really use to stack some wins here. The Padres lost some games, so the Diamondbacks had a chance there to make up some ground in the wild card race and maybe take that top spot. I don't know if that matters. I mean, we've talked a little bit. We know that winning the division matters because you avoid that wild card, series, right? But like in the grand scheme of things, I mean, do you as a team care where you finish as long as you're just in there?
Not in the new format, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Back when the wild card, the way it was set up, it was a huge difference. But I think take the playoffs last year, there was one team that won their division that advanced past the first round last year.
Yeah.
I think in some ways, the playoff format, which I think they've adjusted a little bit, could have been detrimental almost to the teams that won their division. Having that full week off, like you never, ever take 5 consecutive days off from playing baseball in a competitive game. Where now the format and honestly, the way it plays out, I think just getting in is just get in.
Yeah.
Just have a chance, and then from there you're able to see what you're really made of. I mean, there's some advantages, I think, but I don't think it's like what it used to be to winning the division versus being a wild card team.
Yeah. Well, I know we talked about the ghost runner a little bit in extra innings, but how do you feel about it? I know that, like, for the most part during the regular season, a lot of players prefer to get the game over with rather than this going to 15, 16 innings at a time. Like, but you just have that, runner starting on second base. What are your thoughts on that rule?
When we voted for it, I was all for it, and I still am, because I remember the days of playing 16, 17 inning games and what that does to your staff and your rotation and your AAA team and the next couple weeks of how bad that throws you off. But,
and it's a Wednesday game against the Brewers that doesn't really even matter.
But at the same time, I've been a part of these playoff races where you lose a wild card or a division by 1 game.
Yeah,
and,
that's a good point. Every win matters, right?
Again, this is going forward, every baseball argument or talk we want to have is always going to bring in technology and analytics and these new rule changes. How far do we want to take what I call the natural principles that the game was built upon and alter those? So from both ways, I love it because I do think it gets the game over. I think there's a lot of unnecessary things and the way people play the game post 9 innings. But then at the same time, is it a true outcome? Are you really determining who the better team was that day?
Yeah.
And then from a player standpoint, which I think, I can talk to from most, I hate it. Yes, you have a chance to be the hero, but let's just take, we tie the game against the Rays and we go into the 10th and we don't score in the 10th and I'm going in the bottom of the 10th or whatever, the scenario where the ghost runner's on second base. Yeah. I have a complete different mindset.
Sure.
I have no room for error. One mistake, one bad pitch, whatever, loses the game.
A single up the middle.
Yeah, you can name it. My whole arsenal, my whole mindset, everything I'm doing into that moment is completely different. And then not only that, we talked about it strategically, might piss some people off, but I'm going into that situation knowing what I know now. I'll walk 3 batters in a row and walk that guy in before I give up a base hit to lose the game.
You're going for swing.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you asked me that when I was playing, I'm like, no, dude, I'm going to get this guy to bunt, get it out. I'm going to move but statistically, analytically, when you break it down, your best chance to succeed is no contact, that ball not being put in play, a true outcome of a strikeout, a walk. And if it's win or lose, I'm going to beat the guy before he beats me. And I'm not going to give him that chance to beat me. But I struggle with it because, like you said, in mid-May, April, whatever, game's over. Cool. We just played 11 innings. Everyone's home. But you start getting in September, August, and it's like, man, what if we'd have played that game out? I don't know. It is what it is. Every team plays the same rules, but it's, for me, one of those things I struggle with when you talk about true competitiveness in a divisional race or wild card race coming down to a couple games.
Yeah, like last year, the Diamondbacks literally needed a team to lose in order for them to get in. They needed things to happen. They didn't control their own destiny getting in there, and one more win would have done that for them.
I guess Justin Martinez, in a sense, would be a good candidate for the Diamondbacks for a role like that, because if you're talking swing and miss, that guy certainly has it, and he's going to walk someone every now and then as well. But in a situation like that, maybe you'd be okay with that as opposed to someone who's more prone to giving up contact.
I threw in a game, I can't remember, it was when I was in Anaheim against the Blue Jays, and Kirk was up, the catcher.
Okay. Yeah.
And runner on second. Long story short, I ended up giving up a hit to him on a full count on a great pitch. It was a ball way below the zone, whatever. And the next day, my pitching coach was like, hey, blah, blah, don't give in. He shouldn't, you gave up that run. You did nothing wrong. You battled your ass off. You made great pitches, but there was no reason for him to even have a chance. He didn't chase it, whatever, walk him.
Sure.
And it was just understanding the scenario of so what? There's a runner on first and second now with 2 outs instead of a runner on first, and that guy just scored.
Right.
There's no room for error there. Even your best stuff, it's either swing or miss or you walk the guy. And I don't know. It's a weird. And every team, the Rays, if you're asked the Rays and the D-backs on the road how they're going to play the ghost runner, are we going to move the guy over or are we going to swing? There's a lot of different strategy. And it's turned into real quick, shit, I don't want to be that guy. Guys can say what they want in the bullpen. There's a difference in being the closer, being the 7th, 8th inning guy. But then you get into extras, you haven't thrown, you're supposed to have a day off. And now it's like, hey, Archie, you got the 12th of the guy on second.
And there's no room for error.
There's no room for error. Yeah. It's kind of shitty.
Yeah, it's worse than getting just the inherited runner from a starter or something like that, right? Because that's you have time to make that up. The fact that you could go in there and just give up one dinky hit and have that be the end of the game, that definitely sucks. I think we had a question about J Mart there, Damon, in the chat for Archie. From your experience, what does J Mart have to do to take the next step to be a long-term closer? A lot of people love J Mart. They see the stuff he has, right? But
of course,
it seems like at times whoever they put in the 9th inning kind of struggles, right? But J Mart,
I think it's getting back to what I was just talking about. Closing is so different, especially when you take it on as your actual role. There's a difference in filling in and being a guy closer by committee, but when it is your title, it is different than even when you first get it. I think it's something you have to learn. It goes back to risk reward. there's times I'm going to straight up challenge a guy, and then there's times you have to understand, like, I'm probably better off walking this guy. I know it's going to put the winning run on first base, which is a crazy thing to say, but I like this guy second, or I know I can get a ground ball from this guy, or in the best way, understanding like you have room to work with. I can go back to numerous saves. You give me 2 runs, oh, buddy, it's going to completely change the way I pitch.
Right.
Like you have 2 runs, man. Give up a homer, please. Give up. You know what I mean? Like, and just understanding. I say that like understanding the difference of giving up a run versus giving up base runners. Like,
and what that does to you as a pitcher.
What that does to you as a pitcher.
You.
You know what to kind of wrap it up is start to understand yourself. Like, I was unique. I had a windup and a stretch. A lot of relievers only have a stretch position. I consistently threw better out of the windup. So I would rather give up a homer than give up a double. Or, you know, just understanding that now there are percentages that you need to pay attention to and play into, where when you're the 7th or 8th inning guy, you're just slinging your stuff, trying to make things happen. But now as the closer, the next step is truly understanding where the game is at and what you have the ability to do or not to do. Instead of just like, I'm going to throw 100 and see what happens. There are strategic decisions to make in challenging a guy or not challenging a guy, or, you know, throwing certain pitches, you know.
And that's where the lack of experience for someone J Mart's age, right, falls in. Like, he has the stuff. There's no doubt about it, but it's a matter of knowing those moments where you want to pick and choose your battles and knowing who you want to face.
That's where also we talk about, you know, I think I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this from a player saying this, but why don't coaches call more pitches for situations like that?
Right. Why isn't there more of a coaching strategy
Think about
involved?
the NFL or the NBA, maybe a little different, but you're seeing everything from up top. You have all the data, and let's just use you, for example. You come up, 9th inning, runner on second base. I get ahead 0-1. All the data in the world is in the dugout on what the percentages are of what you swing at 0-1.
Right.
And I'm not sitting here saying take away the freedom of allowing me to be aggressive and throw what I want to throw, but I'm a new closer in a situation where, again, we talked about it. You take percentages of a guy's at bats from the 7th inning on versus 7th inning before. They're completely different. So you're facing a 3-hole hitter that has a complete different mindset of his thought in the 3rd inning when he's trying to hit a homer in the 2nd inning versus facing you now with the game on the line. Like, I'm kind of on board with like, dude, tell me what to throw. I'm new to this situation. Yes, I have the stuff, but now I have data coming from the highest source possible. Personally, I'm going to have a lot more conviction of throwing that pitch than like, hey, I think I should throw 100 by this guy.
And J Mart is a guy who has 4 pitches too.
You know what I mean? And even me, as
yeah.
when I came into my closer role, I had a changeup now. I had a curveball, I had a fastball, I had a changeup, I had a two seam. There was times where you can't help but be cute and you try to outpitch a guy or do something when I was in the dugout, in the tunnel, where it's like, no, throw slider. And it's like, well, motherfucker, tell me to throw the slider. You know what I mean? I think we get too proud. And like, I think baseball, I meant to touch on this earlier, is one of the few sports where in-game coaching or in-game adjustments don't really happen as much as you see in football or basketball, where like
that's the reason why they just can turn things around like after a timeout or a quarter or something like that.
I know it's a long game, but yeah, like, dude, you go out there and you get lit your first inning. It's because you keep missing fastball up and away. I'd love to see like, hey, fucking, let's get the ball down once. Hey, Merrill, let's get the ball down. You don't work well up in the zone. You're up in the zone. Let's make an adjustment. Or like I said, like, hey, like, let's open the QB wrist. Oh, pitch 2, slider. Like, oh, that makes sense. Some of this is like, why are we not utilizing the information we have more?
And
especially
towards
so
fast, right?
A guy like J Mart, where it's new, it's fresh, instead of like, oh, well, he'll figure it out because he's a major league pitcher. Well, no, there's a difference in being a major league pitcher and now you're tasked with closing out the 9th inning.
Yeah.
And again, that happened really quick for him too. We talk about Yilver Diaz was just pitching in Double-A like a month and a half ago. But now here he's up.
2019, like, I was literally the worst pitcher on the D-backs, and next thing you know, I'm getting a save in Yankee Stadium, and I closed out 19 games in the second half. It happens like that. But I do think there is some strategic things that could happen that could help him understand those situations more. Instead of just leaving it on the catcher or pitcher to, hey, you guys figured out. Well, we gave you the information before the game. Well, now I've caught 8 other guys before J Mart so many things has happened. I just hit a homer to tie the game. I'm on cloud 9. Now I got to go out and call the bottom of the ninth. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things exactly.
Right now.
Like, I think we forget that some of these guys don't have this experience. These guys haven't been there. And so,
well, and ADC, right? He led the comeback, right?
Yes.
Like last night with the
Diamondbacks were getting no hit yesterday after 6 innings, and I mean, it's honestly remarkable that they even managed to push it into extra innings in the first place. I mean, Adrian Del Castillo coming through with a 3-run homer. Talk about young guys executing in big spots, and it was similar on Friday with Corbin Carroll coming through with that 2-run homer. This was just a kind of a blip on the radar for the team where they had a little bit of magic, but they didn't have quite enough
Correct.
to turn those games into wins.
It was the trop, the swamp, the magic.
I'm reading some of these things because I've always loved this talk. Like, I know coaches that call pitches all the way up to college. I don't want a college atmosphere. I don't want where the catcher's looking over and the pitching coach is giving the sign every time.
Right.
But when we talk about a strategic situation
or high leverage situation
where honestly I trust those numbers and analytics more than ever in those situations.
Sure.
Why would we not give that information? Or I think some of it's as a player not being scared to do that. Like, you watch now, there's some starting pitchers, some pitchers that step off, pull a card out of their back of their pocket and read it and use that to pitch. Yeah. I never did it because I was like, that's not baseball. You don't get, but it is baseball. Nerd. Why would I not take advantage of information that I can carry and use?
Especially baseball, right? Baseball is the game that more than anything, like, you could literally just have written down, he can't hit changeups.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean?
But in the moment you're up there, and again, you got 4 pitches, your team just took the lead. Nah, dude, I'm throwing heater up in the zone.
Yeah.
You're like, dude, that is the actually worst statistical pitch you could have thrown.
Right. That's what he's looking for.
So, I don't know. I would say that back to the thing is initially trust yourself, but also understand that closing games does have some more strategy to it than just pitching the 7th or 8th. Like, there's some important decisions, and sometimes it's even giving up a run or giving up a base, as weird as that sounds, to accomplish a goal of not giving up the runs to lose the game.
And that's the reason why we always joke about how this team seems cursed with whoever they put in the 9th inning, right? But like you said, it's a completely different game in the 9th inning. So there is some truth to the fact that what's happening there in the 9th is different than what happens the rest of the game.
Yes.
Justin Martinez comes out, looks amazing when he comes out and pitches in a 7th inning situation, but then he comes out in the 9th and, you got that happening, right?
So sometimes I feel like patience in those situations really, really can work out pretty well. I mean, I think about Fernando Rodney back in 2017.
Oh, yeah.
You look at that man's numbers after April. If I remember correctly, I think the ERA was double digits. I think it was 10 or 11 or something like that.
Worst closer ever in a non-save opportunity. I mean, the worst. Like, it was incredible.
But in save situations, I mean, from like the beginning of May through the end of that season, Fernando Rodney was one of the best in baseball.
I think too, as weird as it sounds, what helps J Mart or what helps the closer, whoever that may be, is the staff before him. The chain. Like, you can name a ton of guys because a ton of trios have done it, but you look at your 7-8. Like, when you have your solid 7-8, that's what also helps you have a good closer. Like, I would argue in the most respectful way, nothing from Boxberger or Fernando, but the reason they were so successful is because Chafin and I were so damn good at what we did in the 7th and 8th.
Sure.
When you know that you can put out me and Chafin and handle 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and now your closer is getting 8, 9, 1, that's a big difference than
those guys giving up runs, moving the lineup down.
And so, I mean, arguably as good as Rodney and those guys were, the innings before him were equally as important of us handling our job and handling those hitters to allow that lineup to be in a more favorable spot for the closer.
We talk about Geraldo Perdomo a lot on this show. It is Damon's favorite human being on the planet. But like, we've talked about how like he's such a cheerleader and motivator for a pitcher. Like, what would that do for you? Like, would you love a guy like Perdomo that just came over and told you that you got it and like just showed you that support?
I mean, also that's what I grew up like. You don't see it anymore because position players can't go to the mound like they used to, and they can't. I mean, before we were our own coaches. Like, before mound visits, like a player would come talk to you, or I think it's lost. It's kind of cheesy, and I think there's a time and place, but you give up a hit and somebody's, hey, I got you. Give me another one. Hey, let's go here. I look at, Ahmed and I played together for forever. And Ahmed for me was kind of that sounding board in a silent way. Like, I knew Nick defensively was going to do something special to bail us out of the game or pick us up. And so having a guy like that in Perdomo that is also vocal, every team needs that. And it needs to come from different areas. And I think it's a weird thing to say, but when it comes from a Latin player too, it's a little bit more exciting. It's a little bit more
just electric.
Yeah, like no offense to my white Caucasian guys out there, but you're not going to fire me up or make me smile the same as Perdomo or Gino or any of my Latin teammates. Just their
passion is there, right?
Yeah, their passion. I mean, again, you talk about looking at something from the outside in, like not playing this year, looking at it like put the dollars signs, like, dude, these guys come from a different country, man. We're talking about luxuries that are given to us or that are afforded to us daily that we don't even think about, that aren't even options for these kids growing up. Yeah, and if you don't make it in baseball, where are you going to make it? And so, it is. I'm going to respond to Perdomo a lot better and a lot happy and a lot more than, if Paven is over there. Yeah. Like, hey, let's get this on. I'm like, Paven, shut up. Go
back to first, Paven. Well, of course, we appreciate you guys all being here. Love all of your questions. And I have to say this. It's probably not easy for me to say this, but Ryan Reynolds, you had your chance. I got myself a new best friend. So, but I will still tell you about Mint Mobile, because Mint Mobile is a great solution to your overpriced wireless plan. And right now you can say goodbye to that wireless plan with Mint Mobile's premium wireless plan starting at just $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and limited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Bring your own phone, bring your phone number. Nothing changes except how much you're paying for your service. Ditch overpriced wireless service with Mint Mobile's limited time deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for just $15 a month. To get this new customer deal and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Diamondbacks. That's mintmobile.com/Diamondbacks. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Diamondbacks. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. And of course, we are going to go catch a baseball game. I saw Albert's super chat in there. He said that a watch along. I need a Derek and Archie watch along ASAP. We will make that happen extremely fast.
I am offended that I am not part of the
I don't know what happened.
What's going on, Albert?
Jesse, it's okay.
We need to cut to a 2x2 screen view, please.
This is what happens when you leave me out of the Gila River Resort trips that you guys have been doing. But
That's
of course,
fair. That's fair.
Game Time is a great way for you guys to check out some Diamondbacks games. And of course, you can do so now to save up to 60% off by buying tickets last minute for sporting events like a baseball game and all sorts of wonderful stuff coming up this fall. Right now, you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. And also, right now, in Arizona only, you can get 50% off the D-backs versus the Dodgers game on Labor Day. That is now through Labor Day, so do not miss that. They also have all sorts of wonderful guarantees, like lowest price guarantee, which they will credit you 110% of the difference if their ticket price is not the lowest that you can find. And your purchase is also covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. We've seen from other ticket providers, sometimes that can be a little bit of a hassle, especially sometimes how quickly you get those tickets delivered to you. Game Time, there's no delay. Those tickets are there instantly. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. Well, we have a look ahead here at the upcoming series with the Miami Marlins. And of course, I would ask you about how many of these guys you know, but I'm sure that's zero at this point with the Marlins
I think
team.
it was a fire sale. There's a few guys still there, but a majority of my teammates last year are with other teams now.
Yeah, well,
but there's a few guys. A few guys that are playing well. Xavier Edwards.
Yeah.
Got to play a lot with him in AAA last year. Really exciting player.
Yeah.
Can play, honestly, not the same body type or the power, but reminds me of Marte.
Oh, yeah.
Can play multiple positions, has a knack for contact, putting the bat on the ball. I mean, getting into it, what I would hope that I see is that the Diamondbacks take advantage of this Marlins pitching.
Yeah. It's
a lot of young guys. There's a lot of bullpen
good
days for these Marlins. They don't have set starters, set pin. I mean, they are They are the Marlins.
They are the Marlins.
There's a plan there, I guess. Maybe I still got to play next year, so I got to be careful.
We're no disparaging remarks here at all,
but if you have a pulse in the minor leagues, you have a chance to play in the big leagues for the Marlins right now. So,
well, I mean, and that's why it's a team on paper the Diamondbacks should beat, but that's why it's a dangerous team, right? Yes. Because you don't know what you're going to get out of these guys that are young. They're called up and they're excited to play baseball, and these are probably the future stars of tomorrow for the Marlins here now. So let's take a look at their season so far. They are 4-6 in their last 10. They are 46-78 this season with a -167 run differential. Team OPS is 658, which is 29th in Major League Baseball. We have the starting pitching ERA that Archie was talking about there, 5.18, which is 29th in baseball. Relief pitching, 3.92, middle of the pack at 15th.
A lot of those guys who are responsible for that have been traded.
There's
a lot of Tanner Scott. There's a lot of AJ
Those guys are gone.
Yeah. And Sean says, don't let Berger beat you. That's all we have to do is don't let Berger beat us. But outs above average, they are -22, which is tied for 27. So just not a great baseball team. And honestly, some of the really good components of this team that even made these numbers look a little bit better are gone now. But they still are 4-6 in their last 10, and they're still very capable of an upset and really ruining this road trip for the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I mean, again, looking at it strategically from a player's, you look at these numbers, and Marte's out, right? He just went to the DL. So I think for me, it's establishing who's going to step up and drive the offense, who's going to get us going. Yeah. We had a lackluster performance in Tampa. Again, you look at it, 29th out of 30 starting pitching. Like, that's terrible. Right. That's for me a stat that, we don't need to hit homers. We're not a huge homer team anyways, but let's get on base. Let's make things happen, and let's score runs early, because these starting pitchers, they don't stop the damage. They keep giving up hits. They keep giving up runs. Yeah. And again, Marte going down, Walker out, Gabby out.
It's Corbin, pretty big pieces at this time.
I need to see some of these younger guys and / older guys, Jock, Gino, kind of take a step up and fill the void for these guys that are out right now, especially with Marte being the driving force in our offensive production.
Yeah. Sean said, is it a 10-day for Ketel? Yes, it's a 10-day injured list. Sprained left ankle, which is unfortunately upgraded from that. What was it? It was a...
it was originally called a contusion. And then a couple of days later, it was changed to an ankle sprain, and now maybe a slightly more significant ankle sprain.
Again, you want a player's take on what I saw out of an injury perspective? You got a guy that's trying to take in a bat in a big situation. It's already been kind of bothering him. Yeah. It doesn't look good, guys. Again, this is where I get to offer my opinion with no holdbacks from hurting injuries, from seeing stuff. It's not like he did it running and it rolled over again. Like, it was a weird pitch that the weight shifted. And afterwards, what I saw, I mean, again, there's a lot. Our medical staff, I will say, is incredible here in Arizona. But seeing something like that, like you say, a non-contact injury or it scares me. Especially for a guy that is so big and so powerful and moving so much, that ankle scares me. It really does.
Yeah.
It might, unfortunately. I mean, there's still plenty of time. We'll see what the news is as far as how long Ketel is expected to be out. But the MVP conversation surrounding Ketel Marte just lost a little bit of steam today, for sure.
For sure.
It's gonna be tough. I mean, with the way that Shohei Ohtani is hitting right now, he just continues to hit a homer basically every other day, it feels like. But I mean, nonetheless, Ketel has been so huge for the D-backs this year. He's a big reason why they are in such good position right now. And the D-backs, they still have a little bit of cushion in this playoff race. So that the most important thing for them is to get Ketel, and all these other guys healthy going into the postseason.
And we'll say the same thing we've already said about this team. I mean, this team is not built for Ketel to necessarily be the superstar.
Correct.
This team is built for them to have this new hero every single night. Jake McCarthy's been playing incredibly well. We know Corbin, right, has been hitting nothing but homers lately, it feels like, and that's a great thing to see. But I mean, again, you're right. Like, they need other guys to step up, and they do have those weapons. They do have the capability to do so. I think honestly, the offense kind of going flat is what it was, because we did see them kind of come back online, and like Jesse said, have that magic late. I'm more concerned, if I'm being honest, about the starting pitching, because the Diamondbacks were looking so so much to the return of Merrill Kelly and Eduardo Rodriguez. And it's not to say that these guys aren't, still kind of getting back to 100%, right? Like it's a slow build up to being yourself again when you've been off as long as Kelly and Erod have been off. But like that to me at least is the concern for now. And I want those guys to get back on track. The offense, I think they do have enough weapons for the offense to hold strong.
If we look at the pitching matchups for this series, we had to take some educated guesses on the D-back side because I don't believe, I guess they've put up starters now. So they have Brandon Pfaadt going today, Eduardo Rodriguez tomorrow.
Not to cut you off, I thought you were going to say educated guesses on the Marlins side because I don't know any of these gentlemen. I'm not familiar with your game, sir.
There's some educated guesses on that side too. The D-backs, so officially right now, the Diamondbacks do have Brandon Pfaadt and Eduardo Rodriguez listed for Monday and Tuesday. They do not yet have Jordan Montgomery listed for Wednesday. That day is TBD.
Interesting.
And obviously, we talked about this at length last week with the Diamondbacks going with 6 guys in the rotation one time through. And theoretically, they were going to narrow it back down to 5. We sort of assumed that Jordan Montgomery stays and Ryan Nelson goes to the bullpen. But obviously, Nelson has continued to pitch really, really well lately. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that Wednesday game. Nothing official as of right now.
Well, it's going to be a big series just because of the fact that everybody is going to want to see the Diamondbacks get on track. It's not a big series that it means anything to beat the Marlins.
But this is the time of the year where, again, understanding what it takes to make the playoffs. Like, obviously the coaches, Torrey, those guys understand it. But as the players, like your Jocks, your Genos, like these are the series where you win a series here. And it gives you some freedom, some cushion where you come back home and you play some of these tougher teams, the Giants, the Dodgers. Yeah. Not saying that your goal isn't to beat those teams, but you give yourself the leeway to not have to beat those teams.
Yeah, I think mistakes happen.
We have 2 weeks of August and then a full September run. Again, if I think I'm correct, we're 4 games back of the division. We have a 2.5 game lead for the second wild card. Mm-hmm. There is some strategy to play where this may sound weird, as I'm sure when I was in there, guys in the clubhouse, like, what do you mean we're not going to win the division? But like, again, is winning the division a goal? Like, I know it is, but at the same time, like,
it doesn't mean as much as it used to when you had to win the division or get in by 1 wild card spot, right? Like the 3 wild card spots, and the fact that 2 of the National League's last representatives have come from the final wild card spot proves how like unimportant you just need to get in.
That's what I mean. And so not saying that you set up your last month and a half to like, hey, we're not going to go try to win the division. Sure. But I do think there is some realisticness and some, honesty to looking at your team and your squad and like, okay, we have some leeway to test some things out here to make sure that when we do get in, we're the best team to make that run versus like, hey, let's sell out and win the division. And like, what do we do from there?
Yeah.
Which it sounds crazy. I'm not saying you don't go win the division. I'm just saying like, this is a series, for example, where you beat the Marlins 2 out of 3, come back home. Like, okay, we solidified our status in the wild card and give us ourselves a chance to go win the division.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's a huge bounce back because again, you turn a losing road trip into at least some positivity, and then you can come back home and go from there.
You flush that series in Tampa. Yes. Yep. Well, of course, we are glad that our roster expanded early. We know that happens next month, but this guy
was good, Derek.
Thrilled to
roster expanded early.
Right? Like that. Let's see. Look at. Yeah. Oh, God. You're not pulling me again. My God, you already pulled me once. But,
I mean, and I've never lasted this long in a game, so maybe I'm coming back as a starter. Maybe the starter days are back. So
that's all it is. All right. Well, we are thrilled to have you, and we hope you guys are excited about it too. Of course, you can follow all of us on Twitter. I'm at Cap_Caveman with a K. This man is at Archie Bradley 7. Of course, Jesse is at Jesse N. Friedman. The People's producer, Damon Dog, is at Damon Dog. That's DAWG.
Dog.
We are all Damon's dogs. This is where we bark. So you got bark with us. bark. All right. Our show.
That was pretty weak, guys.
It's the weakest bark ever.
I just full committed. I felt like I got half participation.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Archie.
Yeah, you're already his
I
favorite.
got that real dog in me.
Yeah, no, I got that dog in me. Yeah. All right. Well, of course, our show is at PHNX_D-backs, but all roads lead to at PHNX_sports on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We thank you guys so much for being here. Thank this man for being a part of the team. And we will see you tomorrow for a post-game show. Of course, until then, have yourselves a wonderful night. behave yourselves, and remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when Archie Bradley is on your team.
I like that.
We all silly like the mayor.